Hello, and welcome back to my stream Ancient Gaming. I'm Zilla, and this is an Archeo Gaming stream where we play games with Ancient Studies content and talk about it. And joining me today is Dan.
Hello, everybody.
Dan is our resident retro gamer, and he's going to be playing our game for this series, which is the Battle of Olympus. Do you want to talk about the game, Dan?
Sure. So, this game I'm playing on the Retron 5, which is a neat little system. I'm going to be using some cheats in the game itself, just to give myself infinite olives and invincibility to make the game, simpler, better to watch while we content, while we, So anyway, the game itself is obviously Greek mythology themed, and like a lot of games of the era, most of the plot is in the manual. So I'm going to read the plot from the manual. It says, this is an ancient story of a time when men and gods lived together. In the land of Peloponnesus, there was a quiet, peaceful village called Elis. It was the home of the fairest maiden of all Peloponnesus and a gentle yet brave young man called Orpheus. Helene and Orpheus swore eternal love to each other, but alas, one day, Helene fell victim to the fangs of a venomous serpent and perished. Orpheus grieved over her death for 3 days and nights, whereupon he heard the voice of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Quote, I have watched over your love, and I know of the deep grief you now feel. But do not give up hope. Helene has not really passed away. Hades, the god who rules the netherworld of Tartarus, has taken away the soul of Helene so that he can make her his queen. The power of Hades is great, and he has many fearsome henchmen in Tartarus. The only way I can help you save Helene is to suggest that you look for 3 nymphs. They will guide you on your way to Tartarus. If your love for Helene is true, Orpheus, go now and save her. As Orpheus set out on his quest to rescue Helene, your quest begins.
So is that Helen?
It has an E on the
Helena?
end. It's Helen
Yeah.
with an E on the end,
Okay.
so I guess it's...
So
yeah.
so here we have already, we're conflating the myths of Orpheus, Helen, Helen of Troy, and Persephone. So just as a very brief overview, if you're not familiar with any of these 3 myths, Orpheus was a preternaturally gifted musician. He was in love with a nymph named Eurydice, and on their wedding day, Eurydice was bitten by a venomous snake and died. And then Orpheus traveled down into the land of the dead, Hades, to play before the king and queen of the realm, which is to say Hades and Persephone, to try and force them to give Eurydice back. And then he walked back up from the underworld with Eurydice's spirit behind him on the condition that he not turn around to make sure she was there. If he turned to look at her, she would be whisked back into the underworld. And they made it all the way until they could see the light of day, but he couldn't hear her, and he was starting to doubt that she was even there. And he glanced back, and just in time to see her be whisked back into the underworld by Hermes. So that's a very, very surface level of the Orpheus myth. And you can see that we have pieces of that here with his love died. Did they say snake?
Yes.
Yeah, she died of a snake bite, and she's in the underworld, and he wants to get her back, right? So there's that. But then we also have this being Helena, the most beautiful woman in the world. Helen, in Greek Helena, here I guess Helene, in the way that we would say it in English. She's a daughter of Zeus, and she is beautiful beyond mortal ken. Many struggles were fought for her hand, and in the end, Menelaus won, and then the Trojan Paris won a boon from Aphrodite, the goddess of love, to get the most beautiful woman in the world, thus stealing Helen away from Menelaus. But since everybody had wanted Helen, all her suitors had sworn an oath that if Helen was ever kidnapped, taken away from her husband at the end of all of that nonsense, that they would go and fight to get her back. So basically, all of the Greek city-states sent all of their heroes and all of their fighters over to Troy to get Helen back. This is where we get the Trojan War, and Helen is eventually recaptured and repatriated to Greece and Menelaus. The details vary from telling to telling as to how willing she was in any piece of this, and who exactly was where. So we have that aspect of the most beautiful woman in the world, and sort of trying to get her back out of a place where she's been stolen from, not to mention a bit of Faustus of bringing Helen, the most beautiful woman of the world, back from hell. That's Marlowe, so that's your territory.
Yeah.
And then we have a bit of the Persephone story, because Persephone, queen of the underworld, is not just a little nobody. She is the Iron Queen, the Dread Queen Persephone, who rules the underworld. And in some, there's some versions, there's some theories, I should say, that Persephone as queen of the underworld actually predates Hades as a person, because Hades is both the god and the place, the underworld. So Persephone being married to Hades, possibly of a later origin than Persephone herself ruling Hades. So the fact that Hades has kidnapped Helena to be his wife, that's the, we've talked about this in other streams. This is one of those great Homeric hymns. The Homeric hymn to Demeter is all about Hades kidnapping Persephone from her mother's lands, from Demeter's lands, and taking her down to the underworld to be his wife, and how she, eats the 3 pomegranate seeds, and therefore when Demeter finally finds her and gets her to come back out from under the world, from the underworld. There we go, words. And then we get this this myth of the turning of the seasons based on where Persephone is and how happy her mother is with the situation. So Hades stealing a woman away to be his wife and someone coming to get her back, that's the Homeric hymn to Demeter. So we have these 3 very different stories being merged into one, and none of which mention Olympus, which is where the Greek gods live. So the next thing I wanted to mention, still before we've even gotten to the game, sorry Dan, is we've got this lovely graphic in the intro with these Greek columns holding up a pediment, and it's already in ruins, right? So we've got a brickwork base, which is kind of unusual. Maybe it's bigger than I think, and they're actually like big ashlar blocks, but that would make the columns exceedingly huge. So marble columns are usually on more of a flat base that would sort of mirror the top bar. And then this pediment above, usually it would have a decoration on top of it. They didn't often go for just the flat roof. We do have some damage to the area, as if this is already ancient. As you can see, it's got those little like dings in the top and the bottom. So when exactly this is set, also up for interesting debate. But I love it.
All right. So now we start, and it lets us name the hero and heroine. And so, it only gives us 6 characters. So I can spell Orpheus. Now, so they said that it's Helene. And I think it's just because they were scared of the name Eurydice.
Yeah, I can see that.
So,
of course, you only have a few letters.
Let's see if... Do you think that spells Eurydice? If I hit that. Eurydice.
Sure. Oh,
Right.
this is a nice map. Okay, this is actually pretty accurate. So, so I do want to say the Peloponnese is that whole lower peninsula. So you can see Phrygia over there on the coast of Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. And then all of these islands, that big one right below Anatolia, right below Phrygia, is probably Lesbos. Then you've got the Greek mainland, Attica, that's Athens, and Thea up a little further north. We don't have Thessaloniki on this map much because really that's kind of that's not a whole lot of ancient Greek stuff up there. The ancient Greeks tended to stick more to the islands and further along the Mediterranean. Not that they weren't in Thessaloniki, just like that's not what we think of when we think of ancient Greece. So then right below Attica, you've got this little strait, and that's where Corinth is. On that little piece of land between the mainland and the Peloponnese. So everything south of there is the Peloponnese. I think so. Arcadia. So Arcadia up there, Argolis. I don't know what they're saying. Peloponnesus general is there. And then down in the bottom, for some reason, we have Laconia. That's Sparta. Sparta's actually a little further inland. But, decent approximation. Everything here is a little bit fuzzy. And then we've got Crete down at the bottom. Crete, basically this whole thing is a little bit tilted, and the Greek part is made much bigger and the ocean a little smaller. So, but it's actually a pretty good map. Not bad at all. I'm quite pleased.
So let's get going. So
do we have to start in Arcadia, or?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
this is, and it is, you can go and talk to people. So I guess first I must go to the Temple of Arcadia to meet Zeus. And if you do manage to get to any of the other temples, the other gods will not talk to you until you've already talked to Zeus. Yeah. Control fire using the Staff of Fennel.
Ah, yes. So this is actually a reference to Hesiod specifically, but both of Hesiod's main works mention that Prometheus brought fire down from Olympus in a giant fennel stalk. He hid it in the fennel stalk to bring it to the mortals. This was actually my Halloween costume this year. Nobody got it. It's okay. So talk to me about these graphics.
All right. So one interesting thing is the game itself plays very, very similarly to Zelda 2, which I actually really like.
It looks like Zelda 2.
Yeah, but they tried to mimic the controls and everything as much as they could from that game, and that is a game that I do like quite a bit. And also because this was made in a post-Dragon Quest world, the first enemies that you fight are slimes. These little slimes.
These little Greek slimes.
Yeah, and they can drop olives or bay leaves, which is what that was. And the olives are a currency, and the bay leaves will restore health. And I'm using a cheat to give myself infinite olives and infinite health, so they won't really matter. And
Oh, hi there, Johnny One Take. We have Johnny One Take saying, I feel bad saying it, but these graphics are better than Zelda 2 so far.
yeah, I mean, they were a little bit messy, I think. I think especially the Link sprite was a bit messy in Zelda 2.
Yeah, the thing that gets me about the graphics in this are really the backgrounds. Remind me so much of Zelda 2. It looks so similar, especially once we get into the buildings.
Yeah, so this is a little bit important. She's saying, there's an the oracle spoke of this. First, you're supposed to find 3 hearts in the course of the game. First heart is proof of courage. Second heart is the power to undo the barrier. The third heart is the start of a new ordeal.
So they're really cribbing from Zelda here as well, with the trio, the triforce of power, courage, and I mean, I guess that last one isn't exactly wisdom, but
it's yeah. And so, like, as you go along, like, this would take me to Attica, but I don't want to go to Attica yet because that is because I want to see Zeus first. And I just it's the way that you navigate in the game is just there's certain doors that will just take you to the next place, and like so, and for some reason there's a bull in front of the Temple of Zeus.
Huh.
And I don't know why. Like, I haven't, like, there a lot of the other stuff in the game has names, but that one it's just a bull.
Yeah, so I'm also really interested in all this architecture, right? Like, this one actually has marble columns holding up a marble roof and stuff. Is probably okay for a temple.
There are bricks, though.
But the brick constructions really would not be used for a temple, and really, honestly, they didn't do much with bricks. You would see rough stone more than brick. And certainly the way that the houses outside were built, the outside, the way you got to this temple, where there was like a little like house with a white painted house with a wooden roof and wooden shutters, like that's a very European, like Northern European style house. And also like how everybody's dressed is kind of random, it seems like. So we had somebody in what looked like medieval peasant garb earlier. Orpheus here looks like he is dressed in a version of warrior garb with the sort of armor with a short kilt of leather armor on the legs, and then he's got sandals, and he's holding a shield, although it's not a Greek shield at all. You would usually see a round shield, or if you're a hoplite, a more figure 8 type shield. He's got some kind of laurel or tiara on, and he's got a sword. So he's...
No, it's a club.
It's a club. Okay. Well, that's actually pretty reasonable. I mean, not for Orpheus, but for a Greek hero. Johnny One Take says, was this post-Kid Icarus?
Yes, it was.
So yes, yeah. So it's a little bit like Kid Icarus in the face, especially.
And
Now,
so,
Zeus is dressed in flowing white robes, which kind of makes sense for our conception of how ancient Greeks dressed. The chiton, the robes. Certainly they did wear that kind of thing. Usually they wouldn't be plain white, especially if you're wealthy or powerful like Zeus. You might see more vibrant colors for wealthier people. So for Zeus, you might expect purples and golds and, lapis lazuli colors. Whereas Orpheus, who is kind of lapis lazuli colored, you probably expect that leather to just be brown. Also, Orpheus being a musician and not a fighter, it's kind of silly that he has a club and shield, but whatever.
Yeah, and so you have to kneel to talk to the gods, which is a nice little touch. So, the god Zeus, who's heard our story from Aphrodite, can't use the power of Argus without the sword of Hephaestus. I'm not entirely sure what the power of Argus is I mean, I know what it is in the game, but I'm not sure what it's meant to be, like, symbolically.
Oh, what on earth is it in the game? Power of Argus. That's an odd one. It's the power to see things?
It's the power to shoot little lightning bolts out of your sword.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with Argus. So Argus, the Greek mythological figure, is essentially a figure with hundreds of eyes. And he comes up with the story of...
I'm invulnerable. I can just walk through that.
So this is completely not Greek looking, like all of this. This I don't even know what that's meant to be, so I'm not gonna critique it too hard.
But it goes straight to Attica.
And Attica is lush and green. I don't know what all those rocks are. I mean, it does have mountains for sure. City of Eleusis is in fact just outside Athens. That's where you get the Eleusinian mysteries, the mystery cult, which is the cult of Demeter and Persephone. We don't know a ton about it. It didn't have monkeys, whatever that was. But yeah, here we've got that medieval peasant garb again.
So I always thought these things looked like little bears, like little teddy bears almost.
I guess they're kind of somewhere between monkeys and bears. Okay, we've got satyrs. That's Greek. Not real, but Greek. Gaia. The name of a monster?
Yep, created from a large boulder.
Well,
Yeah, that's one of those weird things.
Okay, so to step back, like I was going to talk about Argos. So Argos was the many-eyed monster that. So Zeus had an affair with this mortal named Io, and by affair I probably mean rape, but it depends on the source and how you want to interpret it.
Yeah, so Gaia, the rock monster, apparently is asleep, and so therefore there's peace and...
Oh yay! So Hera caught wind of this, and Zeus tried to hide Io by turning her into a cow and saying, he just really liked this cow, it's so pretty. Cows were very prized, and so Hera's like, oh, a present for me, and takes Io and puts Argus to guard her. So Hermes, in the end, the god of, among other things, swiftness and trickery, Zeus employs him to go and lull Argos to sleep so that he can be killed and Io can be set free. And Hermes plays a magical tune on his panpipes to set the beast to sleep and kills him. Gaia, meanwhile, is the name of the earth, both in terms of like the physical, the ground, the world, and in terms of the mother goddess. So Gaia and Uranos, the sky, were the original two gods, the original two beings, and between them they bore the giants, the titans, etc., etc. So Gaia being a rock monster is a little silly. There is a rock monster who gains his power from his connection to Gaia. And so and Hercules fought him at some point and had to pick him up off the ground so that he would die. So is this Athena?
Yep, and one interesting thing is, like, the way the graphics are, when I was a kid, I always felt like it looked like she has a beard.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, and it seems weird to me, because, like, there, like, some other gods, like when you meet Hermes, he very clearly does not have a beard, but also does not have long hair, and so it feels very... like, the way that they rendered the hair kind of going in front of the face also makes it a bit weird, but there's Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war.
So, again, that's not usually the way that she would be depicted. Athena is she has that same divine robe that we saw before. Yeah, it kind of looks like Jesus. I suppose she does. If you take that hair for a beard, it does look very much like a depiction of white Jesus, doesn't it? And she's got a laurel wreath, which is, a lot of gods and heroes are depicted with laurel wreaths just to symbolize their laurel wreath symbolizing victory.
So
I do find scorpions in Greece. Not that often, but okay.
And like the satyrs are enemies, but I'm invulnerable, so I can just kind of ignore them. But yeah, and the same with scorpions.
Yeah, and Ewoks, whatever they are. But yeah, Athena would usually be depicted with her helmet and shield and spear. Sometimes she's in a longiton, sometimes she's in armor, like what you see Orpheus wearing here. Those houses look a little bit more Greek, the whitewash with the open windows. If you've ever seen pictures of like Santorini, the beautiful whitewashed houses with the bright blue rooftops.
Yeah. So
So, Lamia, not a vampire. Lamia was a, sort of, if you've ever heard of La Llorona, more like that. She is a figure of both seductive power against men. She seduces and kills men, but also she's got this this attachment to children.
Anyway, so here's Lamia.
So here Lamia is depicted as she sometimes is in later works, with half body of a snake. That's not always the case. Sometimes she's just depicted as essentially a woman, a spirit woman, like a dead woman's ghost turned into a monster. Is this Lamia's child?
Now, this is the child that was apparently kidnapped by Lamia, and so I got to him before he got eaten.
Yeah. So Lamia does have an attachment to children and will steal children. And much like La Llorona, it's all sort of about the children that were taken from her. There are versions where she is associated with, with... Oh, I just lost it in the middle of saying it. With prophecy. With Zeus giving her the gift of prophecy, or having been struck blind, or, the sort of things that you associate with a woman who has been sort of abused by the gods. See also like Cassandra, or when Tiresias was a woman.
So this is the mother of the child who I just rescued, who
just happens to have the fire rod, the staff of Fennel, which Prometheus brought down from Olympus.
So I get this, and it is twice as strong as my normal club. So the normal club is now, completely worthless.
It does not, in fact, look anything like a stalk of fennel. Fennel stalks are nice and straight for the most part. If you've ever seen, so we have like normal sized fennel here in the U.S. Like, it's maybe a big fist shape in the bulb, and then you have stalks about yay high that end in little frondy bits. There is a type of fennel local to the Mediterranean that's common in Greece, that is usually what's referenced here. It's called giant fennel, and so that staff could be like the size of a walking staff, but it isn't curly. It's straight, like you would see on a small fennel.
Yeah. So here this is the grandfather of the child, and Prometheus is the only person who knows how to use the powers of this staff. So I'll have to find Prometheus.
Hey, that's almost right.
So.
Oh, hey, we've got cantilevered roofs here. So this is something that you do see in ancient Greek buildings where, go back to the edge, the other edge, where you see it, the second story overhanging the first story. This is a kind of construction that is actually really cool, that allowed for more space, and you can have the roof overhanging to like about that distance, about in proportion. They had mastered that technique, and there were many cantilevered buildings in Greece. I really wish I knew what those Ewoks were even supposed to be.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find anything either. Yeah, but
so where are we now? Thea?
No, I've gone back to the first area.
Okay, we're back in Arcadia?
Yes. Yeah, and that is because it's the way to, what is the name of the place? The way to the next place I want to go to is through here. It's in one of these trees, these tree houses. It's through here. Is going to be the way to another old Ewok, I guess.
I mean, it's a monkey, it's a bear, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see what some people have to say. Yeah, so nectar is like, it will heal you. It is, yeah.
That actually makes a little bit of sense. Nectar is the drink of the gods in the same way ambrosia is the food of the gods.
Yeah. is also ambrosia. When you find the ambrosia, it will actually increase your health bar, like the length of your health bar.
So it makes sense that both of those things are about health, since both of them relate to the way that the gods stay immortal and eternally young.
So now to
So now
Argolis.
you're heading to Argolis.
Yep. This is like a bunch of caves and things.
There is a big cave system around Argos. The nymph. Which nymph? There are thousands of nymphs.
I'm supposed to find 3 specific ones.
Do you know which ones?
I don't really have names.
Okay, so a shield made of salamander skin will protect you from fire. That actually makes a certain amount of sense. Salamanders, despite being amphibious, are often associated with fire, especially elemental fire. Because if you light a wooden log on fire, they will come out because they were hiding in the damp and rot. So there's a long-standing association in places where salamanders live between them and fire.
Yeah, so apparently Prometheus was thrown into a cavern many years ago, and he can't escape because a lion is guarding the way.
That's interesting.
Now, the lion, of course, in the instruction manual is identified as the Nemean lion. Because, this is kind of a...
Because it's the greatest hits role.
Yeah.
So, Salamander's not associated with Hermes at all. Hermes being the god of, like I said, swiftness, trickery, trading, messengers, travel, that kind of thing.
Oh, here's that Nemean lion, which just goes down just like that bull.
So bulls were associated with a lot of divine things in antiquity, but you don't usually get them associated specifically with Zeus. You're more often to see them associated with, oddly enough, Poseidon. If you think over to Near Eastern mythology, you have like the bull of heaven, Humbaba, in Gilgamesh's story. So here we have Prometheus, who is just an old guy who was trapped in a cave by a lion, apparently. But the story of Prometheus is that he was the titan of foresight. He had a brother, Epimetheus, the goddess of hindsight, god of hindsight.
I feel like hindsight is less impressive.
Yes, that is the point. That's why Pandora was given to Epimetheus, so that she would wreak havoc, because, well, Prometheus would have looked at her and said, she's going to be the cause of trouble. Epimetheus was like, hey, this looks great.
So incidentally, in this game, there's an ocarina, and this, I believe, is actually the first time, when I was a child, this is the first time I encountered the word ocarina. There are other games that have ocarinas in them, but they usually translate it as flute.
Right, because ocarinas are not common to, well, they're not something I associate with Greece, that's for sure.
And
they're not common here.
And I assumed, based on this game, that the ocarina was actually a Greek instrument originally. But I
actually don't know where it comes from, do you?
It's my understanding is that it is one that comes, like, it basically is something which has been created in lots of different societies, and so there are examples of ocarinas I think in both like Mesoamerica and in Africa and in Asia and stuff, because it is ultimately just, you kind of can make an ocarina out of like carving a gourd, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I don't know where the word ocarina specifically comes from.
Yeah, I have no idea. But so Prometheus stole fire from Olympus, hid it in a giant fennel stalk, brought it down to mortals, and for this he was punished by Zeus, from whom he stole. Zeus didn't want this to happen, but instead of finding a way to get back from the mortals, what Zeus did was he punished.
Yeah, so this is the Temple of Hermes. He is, summoned by Zeus, so I should get out of here. It just means I have to go back to the Temple of Zeus to go see Hermes.
I see.
But also people have been warning me this whole time that there are salamanders under there, and so that means that if I fall down here, I go into the nest of salamanders.
Who are just snakes, apparently.
Yeah, although they are immune to fire.
Cool.
Yeah.
Salamanders, not snakes. Anyway, the real... Yeah, also olives are not currency, for all that they were very important in Greece.
Yeah, and so this is my first ambrosia, which increased my health bar a little bit.
So...
You can also collect salamander skins by, to eventually make a shield out of. But they drop randomly from these guys, and so it can take a while, and I couldn't find a code to just give me infinite salamander skins.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid the grind, which is why you have those cheats on in the first place.
Yeah, and so that's a salamander skin, and you see it has a little snake with a 0. I pick it up, a little snake with a 1.
Gotcha.
And so earlier I actually, because this system can also do save states, I actually made a save state in this exact place.
Nice.
With 20 skins, because that's what you'll need.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Let us know if at any point the sound goes wonky, by the way. We had some trouble with that earlier, but I think we fixed it. So Prometheus is actually punished by being chained to a rock and having Zeus's eagle pick at his liver, which then regrows every day for all of time, until he is freed from the rock. So being trapped in a cave, not quite the same, and then to have it guarded by the Nemean lion is funny. So Nemea is, of course, a region of Greece, and there was a lion that was terrorizing the region whose hide could not be pierced. So hitting it with a club does make sense, because you can't pierce its hide, but the actual person who slew the Nemean lion was Heracles, who strangled it with his bare arms, and then managed to rip it open from the jaws, essentially, and make it into a cape, which he wore forever after. And that's why Heracles has a lion theme, was the Nemean lion.
And the bull is still here, but my club is stronger. The staff of fennel is stronger than normal club, so it goes down quicker. And so here's Hermes, and he clearly does not have a beard.
Clearly does not have a beard, wearing the same exact robes as all the other gods. He is associated with special sandals with wings on them, so that's pretty neat.
Yep, the Talaria. And they appear on the screen there. So I can jump way higher.
The Talaria generally are associated with Hermes' ability to fly and move swifter than other gods, even.
Yeah, one thing which is very cool is that now in certain areas that have like a type of ceiling, I can actually go
They reverse gravity for you?
Yeah, in certain areas like this where there's a ceiling, but like I can't just fly off into nothing. If I walk off here, I'll just pop back down to the ground. Mm-hmm. So
that's good.
Yeah,
you don't want to fly off into space.
Yeah, I think it's just a really cool upgrade to have gotten like just randomly so early in the game. So this is the way to Peloponnesus.
Okay.
Which in this case is just a forest.
Sure. All right.
And it's got these like ostriches or whatever they are. I don't know.
Yeah, those don't live in Greece either.
Yeah, and I can
There are bats. There are spiders.
I can burn the spider webs.
Forest of Thorns.
Yeah, because there are just thorns, and this place is a bit of a maze.
I see.
Yeah. So. That right? Yeah. I'm just looking at directions. So. But yeah, it's just all foresty, and there's lots of doors, lots of ways through. Yeah. First door on the right, followed by second door on the left. To get to the Temple of Apollo.
Okay.
So here's Apollo. It looks just like Hermes.
Both of those gods do typically have clean-shaven presentations. Not always. Bearded Hermes is usually found atop boundary markers called herms, which typically also are. It's just a pillar with a head of bearded Hermes atop and a giant phallus. That's the idea.
So is that where the hermetically sealed comes from?
Hermes?
Yeah, just thinking because of like a boundary or something.
Maybe. I would have assumed it had to do with hermetic, as in the practice of. So there's a certain practice of alchemical mysticism that is very like precise and detailed. That's usually what we mean when we say hermetic, but I don't know. I would have to check where exactly the split was for that. Hi, person named Climax. Welcome.
So
yeah, well, we finally get a harp. Apollo is the god of music.
I can play it at the Monument of the Sun, and Pegasus will come to help me. I may do that a couple of times. This is also the first time I get an item that I can play with the select button. Yeah, so I play a jaunty tune.
So Apollo is the god of music. Makes total sense that you would get a harp from him, or rather a lyre. As you can see, it really is more of a lyre shape than a harp shape. Fun fact, the lyre was actually made for Apollo by Hermes as sort of an apology for playing a giant prank and stealing all his stuff. Yeah, long story. If you read the Homeric hymn to Hermes, it's all about that story of Hermes waking up as a tiny baby and going, I know, I'm gonna steal Apollo's shit.
Yeah, and here's the thing I can burn. It's kind of underwhelming that's all it is.
That doesn't look much like a thorn, it looks like a hedge.
Yep. So I continue on. I don't have to time anything because I'm invincible.
So Climax apparently is someone who hacks this game frequently. So don't worry about spoilers or anything. Dan is definitely familiar with the ins and outs of this game, having played it multiple times in the last several days. So is that our Hydra?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Hydra is sort of etymologically associated with water, being sort of named for it. But in Greek mythology, the Hydra is actually a giant monster with multiple heads. If you cut off one, it grows two from the stump. And again, we're dealing with the labors of Heracles. Heracles was tasked with killing it, and the way that ended up working was that his brother, cousin, servant, there's some different versions there, Iolaus, took a torch, and every time that's a fairy.
So it's the spirit of the forest. I would have driven out the Hydra by knocking its head off 9 times.
I see.
Peace will return, so now I get a sword. Hey, look. Now I've got a sword.
So, yeah. You do get nature spirits, tons in Greece, but they are generally called nymphs or goddesses. Or gods, depending on what it is. You often get river gods. But, if you've heard of dryads, that would be a tree spirit. So like a forest spirit, perhaps. And Climax says the Hydra is the only boss that takes the same number of hits to kill regardless of your weapon. Interesting. So yeah, the little depiction of like just a woman with fairy wings, that's a much more Northern European to Celtic style of depiction. You don't really find that in Greece. What you find is more, people with associations with nature. Like I said, so small gods and goddesses and nymphs.
Yep, so that woman said the crows told her that something is hanging from the trees, and it is another ambrosia.
Not a lot of mythology surrounding crows in Greece that I can think of. Oh,
Yep.
here's our rock giant.
Well, it's a cyclops.
Oh, it's a cyclops.
Yep. I have to. And
Well, it does appear to have one eye, so I
Yeah,
guess
and-
there's that.
Somebody says, like, somebody I didn't run into in the game says something about, like, it can be defeated by hitting its eye with a sword. You know, unlike everything else that apparently is immune to getting hit, in the eye with a sword. I mean,
Like the Nemean lion, right?
yeah, and so now that gets me to Laconia. Yeah, and
This is apparently Sparta.
yeah, there's all this stuff.
It's a much more Greek construction of the area. This actually looks kind of Mycenaean, which is Sparta is one of the older places. But actually, if you go to modern Sparta, you cannot see almost any of this. This looks much more like you might find in Mycenae or even in the digs in Athens.
Yeah, and so this area is one of the big reasons why I'm invincible, is because, like, this stuff will kill you. And so that was the flask that somebody told me about that can carry nectar for me. So it'll allow me, I can fill it up, and then it'll allow me to replenish my health. That is, I'm not going to need because I'm invulnerable. Just because, it makes for better TV.
Yeah, so here we definitely have monkeys and eagles. Monkeys not typically found in mainland Greece. Not that they didn't know of them, they certainly did. But
And in the dark, the fire can light stuff up.
that's useful. That's also like Zelda 2, isn't it?
You do get a candle, but it works automatically.
I see.
And so here we have Poseidon.
Okay. Down on the coast.
Yep. Yeah, Lake. Yep.
So you do get some association with dolphins and Poseidon, of course.
Yep. And this is part of why I'm, have infinite olives, is because everything that needs olives is something like this, where they're like, oh, give me 80 olives, give me 60 olives, whatever, and it's just a lot quicker to not have to grind for that.
Yeah, and again,
So there's an
all
ocarina.
the gods should be depicted differently. They each had their own iconography. Poseidon, you're probably familiar with the trident. He's often depicted bare-chested, usually with a short chiton.
So Festus is in, how did you say that? Thea?
Thea, usually. Gosh, I know I was talking about something or other.
Might have been about Sparta. I don't know.
I was going to say about the Cyclops. The Cyclopes were children of Poseidon, and in the Odyssey, the Cyclops that we're all sort of familiar with from that story, that is one of Poseidon's children, and this is part of why Poseidon is so pissed off at Odysseus. And
So he's going to be doubly pissed off at me because there's apparently another Cyclops right near the temple, and I'm just going to kill it too.
yeah, and they were giants.
And hey, I dropped another ambrosia. That was nice. And this is where place I can fill up the pitcher.
Huh, there's just nectar, just a well of nectar. That's pretty
Yep.
great. Just sitting there.
Yeah, there's like a fountain in
The drink
Athens,
of the
which
gods.
is the same.
It kind of makes sense in Athens with the cult of Eleusis. The cult of Eleusis, I mentioned earlier, is, Demeter and Persephone, and to be initiated into the cult was to have a hope of rebirth, that your death wouldn't be the end of your spirit's existence. Which, the land of the dead is kind of an end. There's not really a heaven. Like, even Elysium is not heaven.
This is
So,
about how there's a siren that can mesmerize me and rip me apart.
so sirens are actually they're winged beings, just like harpies, with the bodies of birds and the upper torso and head of a woman, and they do sing mesmerizing songs. Okay, so this riding a dolphin around, this is actually a reference to the myth of Arion. I don't actually know how you would say that in English. I usually say Orion, but then people hear Orion because that's more common. Okay, so this is like a harpy or a siren, and the basic difference between them is that a harpy is just like ugly and wants to kill you, and a siren will sing so that you become mesmerized and crash your ship.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not singing, actually, because usually it does. I wonder if the cheats are making it not do the thing. It's also not really attacking either, but usually it'll sing and you'll be stuck, and then you play the harp. It'll, while it's playing, you'll be able to do stuff.
You drown out its song with your own.
Basically.
That actually that's the first thing that makes sense for Orpheus in this game. Not that he ever fought sirens that I know of, but being able to affect change by playing his lyre, that is what he did. So that makes a ton of sense. The sirens, again, most commonly talked about in the Odyssey, where...
And so these are the Gryai, apparently.
Okay.
There are 3 of them, and,
one of many sets of 3 women in Greek mythology. The Gryai share an eye and have some stake in prophecy. They're often conflated with the Fates, actually.
And of course, being a video game, the only action you have is violence. That is the way you interact with the world, and so you have to beat them up and you get the eye, which
creepy.
Which will allow you to see, and like you can use it in certain places to open up the way and like show invisible, it's necessary. But yeah, you beat them up and you steal the eye.
So here's a question. Did this come out before or after the movie Clash of the Titans, the original one?
Oh, well after. Clash of the Titans, that was like early 80s, I think. And I mean, I guess this actually was 89, so this wouldn't have been that much. Yeah, it would have been actually only less than 10 years.
So it's the Gryai and their shared eye were really popularized in modern conceptions of Greek mythology by that movie. Like, I really don't think that they come up almost anywhere else. So I think there's a little bit of Clash of the Titans going on here.
Yeah, and so if you play the harp at the Monument of the Sun, you can ride on Pegasus, which will take you to some specific other place for each one. And so this literally is just back to the very start of the game, but there are places I need to go. So
that Monument of the Sun didn't look much like a Greek monument I've ever seen, but Apollo being associated with the monuments to the sun makes total sense, as he was a sun god, not the sun god, but he was one of the gods who had access to the chariot of the sun. The sun god, usually we talk about Helios, who is the Titan, who is the sun. But Apollo was also associated with the sun. And then Pegasus is actually much more associated with either Poseidon or Athena. We're talking about the myth of Bellerophon here, right? Where we have the...
I wanted to go to Argos, didn't I? This is the whole thing. This is where it falls down, as I always forget exactly how to get to places.
Pegasus, when Perseus kills Medusa at Athena's behest, the Pegasus springs from her blood. But much like Medusa, who is associated both with Athena and Poseidon for different reasons in different versions of the myth, Pegasus becomes associated with one or the other of those. Now, taming Pegasus and riding him to battle was actually Bellerophon, who fought the Chimera. a three-headed beast that merged a goat, a lion, and a snake. And then attempted to ride Pegasus up to Mount Olympus and was struck down for his hubris.
So here's one of the places where you go use the eye, and a door appeared. And I'm in a creepy new place.
A creepy new place that looks a lot like every other cave.
Yeah.
And I have completely lost track of where we are because all the caves look very similar.
Okay. But that is one of the nymphs I'm trying to find.
Okay, so they're depicting nymphs as fairies. All right, sure.
Captured by the Cyclops and Peloponnesus and forced into this cave. Here's a fragment of love and a letter from Eurydice. Okay, I guess I spelled it differently in the save state, but whatever. Follow Hades' servant to Laconia.
Hades' servant.
But then we actually get...
A view of Eurydice.
Yep. Bitten by a poisonous snake, taken to Hades in Tartarus by some awful monsters. Trusted my love for you to Aphrodite's servants, the nymphs. Please accept and use it wisely. So I got the first fragment of love, which is that little heart at the bottom there.
I see.
Now, the person who was talking about the oracle said something about the... Exactly, it was the proof of something. But there was somebody else in another place who said they could help me if I could prove that I'm Orpheus. Minotaur of Crete uses a barrier. Oh, that's another thing, is that the person who was talking about the three hearts said, like, the second one will get past the barrier. And so I guess if you're, like, writing everything down, this is an indication that, oh, you know, when you get the second one, the next place you go is to try to, you know, fight the Minotaur in Crete. Because the Minotaur is a barrier.
Well, the Minotaur does belong in Crete. No arguments there. I guess even Minotaurs should practice safety.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's like, yeah, a lot of interesting things about this game. Because the game itself was actually made by 3 people. And basically there was one person did the graphics, one person did the programming, one person did the music, essentially. And the one who did the music, Kazuo Sawa, had a career doing a lot of other music for a lot of other games. He did like the music for a lot of the Kunio games, like Renegade and River City Ransom and things like that. The other 2, though, were actually newlyweds. The 2, Yukio Horimoto and Reiko Oshida, were newlyweds when they made this game. And so it is actually pretty... it's tempting to describe this as, you know, a love story, essentially. That is why they chose this story. And so here's that guy who wanted proof of who I am. So the nymph has gone to the Garden of Hesperides, take this key to go after her.
Interesting. So the Garden of the Hesperides is the garden at the end of the world, guarded by Atlas's daughters, the Hesperides. So Hesperides basically means the children of the West. So it's imagined as the far western shore, or possibly the equivalent would be, you know, thinking about Into the West from Tolkien. That's kind of a Hesper. What's that?
So I was told that there's like a boulder blocking the path, and I was also told that Gaia, you know, is a scary rock monster.
This is our rock monster?
Yep, and they also told me that an ocarina can wake up the earth. So, and it fights just like the Cyclops.
I see.
But yeah, so that is apparently Gaia, which is, yeah.
I want to say the rock monster's name is actually Kakus or something like that. Can't remember right now.
So that opened,
yeah, Climax says the Japanese title for this game is Legend of Love.
Yep.
So.
And opened the way to Thea, you said?
Thea.
Yeah, and so this area is the real reason why I am in completely, you know, not touchable, is because this is where things are really trying to knock you off into the abyss
pits and
all
off the
time.
mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rock monster here is named Gaia, but Gaia in Greek mythology is the name of the earth itself, the goddess who is the earth. So the rock monster here, I believe the rock monster in Greek mythology is named Cacus, but I would have to check. That might be the Roman name. It's been a long time since I looked up that particular myth.
So here we have...
So the Hesperides guard the golden apples that are basically ambrosia. So here we have Hephaestus, who looks just like every other god with a beard. Again, Hephaestus, the god of the forge, would have looked very different. He is usually depicted in a leather apron with his hammer. He is known for having a disability, his club foot. The stories differ sometimes on whether it is the reason that Hera threw him from Olympus at birth or caused by the fact that Hera threw him from Olympus at birth.
So he gave me the strongest sword, which I can use to shoot a little, lightning bolt, which does harm me to do, which actually, increases my health to use it. There's a thing you can get later which will make it so that you don't take damage from that.
So again, with being inspired by Zelda, it seems, little sword beams. Although sword beams don't hurt you, but you can only use them when you're full health.
Yeah.
So
here's another ambrosia.
Wow, you must be running out of those.
So, nope. Oh well. Anyway, but that just it'll get me back to the start of the area, which is where I was really going to anyway. Because now I need to go the other way, because I was told about the waterfall and everything.
So, what was I going to talk about?
Maybe the Hesperides. But... Oh, golden apple. It's being guarded by Ladon, a huge dragon.
So we do have dragons in Greek mythology. I don't remember one called Ladon, but it's possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Ladon was the one who was in the Garden of the Hesperides. And here's just
okay.
a random centaur.
Random centaur that moves more like a deer than a horse.
Yep. But, and he's not even a real boss. He's just an annoying thing to deal with. I can get through to...
So centaurs are known for their archery. They are generally considered to be the offspring of...
Oh, and there we go.
Ixion, one of the mortals condemned forever to the bowels of Tartarus to suffer for all eternity. He's bound to a turning wheel for attempting to rape Hera. And instead of actually getting to rape Hera, the gods made a cloud Hera for him to have sex with, and from that were born the centaurs for some reason.
So I used the Eye of the Graiai to find a hidden passage in this cave, and there was a door which opened because I have the key that I got from that guy in Athens after proving myself with the first one. And so here is the second of these fairies, who apparently was
Captured
scared
by
away
the Graiai.
Yep. Eurydice was taken across the sea to Crete. Here is a letter and a fragment of love. Please hurry. And so you get another little letter from her. She'll never belong to Hades. Knows that I'll come to save her. According to Hades' servants, the entrance to Tartarus lies along the sea between Crete and Argolis.
So I'm going to pause this here for a second and ask you, Dan, do you want to... It has been about an hour, which is usually how long I let these streams go. Do you want to break this here and pick up next week? Or would you prefer to just keep playing?
I mean, it's tempting to just keep playing, although it does feel like this is probably around the halfway point.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of mazes and stuff coming up.
Let's call it here then for the day. We'll go to Crete, see the Minotaur, and break its barrier for whatever good that does next time, and find the entrance to the underworld. All right. Thank you all so much for watching along. I'm excited for this new series. We might play another retro game after this. Who knows?
Who knows?
And hopefully see you next week. Thanks for watching, friends. Keep
Thanks.
learning.